Hey everybody, in this video you guys are going to learn about two concepts in Vue. In the first part of this video you guys are going to learn about component events, and in the second part of this video you guys are going to learn about the Provide and Inject API in Vue. So let's get started. So for the first part, as discussed earlier, I'm going to first tell you about the event API. So for example, take this React code. Here I have a parent component that calls a child component. Within my child component, I'm passing in my people and my set people hook. Furthermore, my child component, so in this case, the people view component, is manipulating the people state. This process in React is called lifting state up. So this means that in React, I can use the child component to manipulate the state of the parent component. This is the closest equivalent I could write for Vue. Here, I'm also passing my people state and my remove item function to my people view component. However, apparently in some forums, I found out that this is not a really recommended way. Vue recommends developers to use the event API instead. In the component event API, the child component sends an event to the parent component and tells the parent component to manipulate the state on its own. So now that you know the important idea behind the component event API, let's now write some code. So off screen, I've written some code here. So basically this is nearly the same code that I covered in my example earlier. I just created a people array that I'm passing on to this people view component. And then within my people view component, I'm just rendering all of my items onto the browser. And I also have a button component that when clicked just outputs the index onto the console. So our first step here would be to define an emit signal. This signal would then be propagated to the parent component so that the parent component can pick it up and then perform an action accordingly. So to define an emit signal, I'm going to go const emit, and then there's a function called define emits. So it accepts an array for the first parameter and then the name of our emit signals. So here, since I want an emit signal to remove items from my people array, I'm going to name the signal remove-items. So Vue by default recommends you to name your emit signals using kebab case. Anyways, moving on. Now to emit the signal, I would have to remove this part of my code. And then there's this function called $, and then emit. So emit my signal. So thanks to TypeScript, I have autocomplete. So I just do remove items. All right. So I have a TypeScript error here. I'll just remove this. This we don't need as well. I'll just remove it as well. And then I go to app.vue. So how do we pick up the emit signal? Well, recall to handle events in Vue, we had to use the add modifier. So for example, we had a add click modifier for our buttons. In the same way, since we have a remove items event, I simply go add remove items, and then we would need to have a function that handles this remove items event. So then here I'm gonna go const remove items. So since this is a function, I can just do console.log item was removed, and then I pass on this function to my add remove items signal or my handler. That's it. So now I'll go back to the console. I'll just clean it up. Let me refresh, and hopefully if I click on this button, it should work. Nice. Let's now move on. So the original intention of my emit signal was to remove certain items from the array. Here, I would need to retrieve the index of the item that I want to remove. So luckily, the emit function accepts another argument. So in this case, it can be my index. And then to retrieve this index within my app component, here I can just do index. And then since this is TypeScript, I would need to add this type. So it's a number. And then in my console.log, I can go with the index of comma index. And I do inspect element again, console, I clean it up, refresh. So if I remove person, I have my index number coming up. Let's try adding another item. So for the name of my second person, I'm gonna go Sana, and then age 28. It's coming up as well. And then if I inspect again, remove person, the index is coming up correctly just as expected. Let's now actually remove items from my array. So within my remove items function here, what I can do is I can go people.splice and then the index of the item that I want to remove. So the index is coming from the argument, and then the amount of people I want to remove. In this case, it's just 1. Now refresh and hopefully this should work. Nice. As you can see, it's now removing items. So here I would like to clean up some of my code because here, frankly, it looks a bit ugly. So for example, here, assume that you have a signal and the name of that signal is really, really long. So in this case, this line of code would be borderline unreadable. So to mitigate this issue, I can simply go to this line and then I can go const emit. So I basically put its value into a variable and then I can make a function. So const remove person. Let's make it a bit consistent. So it's remove items, and then index of type number, and then arrow, and then I'm gonna go emit. So basically more or less the same thing. So the name of my signal and then the argument I want to pass. So in this case, it's index. So now I can use this function like so. So I remove here, I add it like so, and then within the arguments, I just do index. That's it. So now if I refresh, hopefully it should still work. So I go remove person. Yeah, nice. It works. Let's now move on to the second part of this tutorial. Alright, let's now talk about the Provide and Inject API within Vue. So as an example here, let's take this little diagram as our component chain. Here you can see that deep child is a child component of my footer component, and my footer component is a child of the root component. Now let's say I want to pass down my people array to my deep child component. So if I want to pass this array, I would have to pass it through footer and then to deep child. There might be a problem in this case. Let's say the footer component is not using the people component. Since my people array is not being used by the footer component, basically in this case, my people array is useless for my footer component. This process is called props drilling, and it really makes the code hard to read. So to solve this issue, this is where we can use the Provide and Inject API. Let's now write some code. So first what I want to do is I want to create a child component. So within my components folder, I'll create a new file, people view header.view. And here, let's just build a blank view component. Okay, so off screen, I've written some very basic code. So here I can do an h1. This is a list of people, and I'll render it within app.view. So I'm gonna render it here. So people view header. So my h1 is showing up. And then let's create another child component. Let's call it people view list.view. And within this component, I'll display my list of people just like before. So let's write some code again. I'll just copy this and then I'll paste it here. I don't need this at all. So let's now use the Provide and Inject API. So what I want to do here is that I want to pass my people array to my people view header component. And since people view list will be a child of people view header, my people view list component will have access to the people array. So to pass down my array, down the component chain, I'm going to go provide. So I want to provide my array, and the first parameter is the key. Let's call it people, and the value people. Since this is TypeScript, I can also introduce types. So let's declare generic and curly braces, name of type string and age of type number, and this is going to be an array. So now my provide function says that all of the children of my app component will have access to this people array. Let's now use it. So I'm going to go to people view list, and to consume my people array, I'm going to go const people. It should not be here. Control X, and then I'll put it here, equals inject. So I inject this variable into my component, and then it accepts a key. So recall earlier, my key in this case was just people. I'll go to people view list, paste it here. And since this is TypeScript, I need to introduce types as well. I'll go to app.view, and then I'll just copy this like so, and then paste it here. So now I need to fix my imports. Quick fix, import from Vue, and then I have to render this array. So I'm just gonna go to people view, and then I'll just copy this code. I'll put it here. I'll delete this for now. Let's just fix it later on. Yeah, we can remove this as well. And then I go to people view header, and then I'll render it like so, people view list. That's it. So now here you can see this works. I'll go to app.view. For the sake of cleanliness, I will just comment this code out. And then via this API, I can even manipulate the parent state. So I go to people view list. I'll create a function just like earlier. So const, basically I'll just go to app.view, copy, and then paste. So it has the TypeScript error. So if people, and then this should basically fix it. And then here I'll just create a button, click, remove items, and then the argument is going to be index. And then remove, that's it. So here it's an undefined variable. I'll just do a bracket and then comma index. So I did not put my button in the right position. I'll just move it up like so. And let's see if it works now. Let me refresh the page. Remove. Great. Let's go to app.view. Let's add more people. I'll just comment this out. I'll comment this as well. And then let's add more people. So name, Minji, and then age 21. Let me refresh again. Remove. Great. So as you can see, so far it works. In this video, you guys learned how to use the component emit API, where you got to learn how to emit signals to the parent component. Furthermore, you guys also learned how to use the inject and provide API in Vue. These two APIs will make it easier for you to manage your state throughout your application. That's it for today. If you guys have any questions or any feedback for me, you can leave it in the comment section. Till then, bye bye.